February 24th, 2022. Jim, so I hear Sea Island is incredible. I've got a client that belongs to Frederica,
Yes,
or
that's where
and
we stay.
is that where you stay?
Yeah, that's my one of my daughters has a second home there, and so my wife's down there right now, and I may be going back.
Oh, awesome.
So yeah,
So
it's fabulous.
you play that course quite a bit then?
I've only played it once with my son-in-law, and he said once enough with me was once. Yeah, yeah.
That
He's a scratch golfer, so
that's awesome.
I
Yeah,
am.
there's quite a bit of guys from down in Sea Island, PGA guys.
Yes,
That's a hot spot for sure.
very much so.
Awesome.
I think
Awesome. Rhino, what's happening?
not a whole lot. Isn't our boy Adam Wainwright from Sea Island? Or like, is there like a
Yeah,
St.
yes.
Simon's Island over there?
Yeah, St. Simons is the main
Yeah.
island. Frederica is a development with a golf private club, and
Mhm.
Wainwright, I think, is a resident there. He's a St. Louis pitcher, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, that's where he lives.
Yeah, and in fact, the gentleman I was talking about, Matt, he played with Wainwright in some kind of an event down there,
yes,
and he said that guy, he said he was hitting his 2-iron or 3-iron as far as those guys were hitting their driver. He said he
Oh
just
my God.
mashes a ball. I
Yeah.
mean, he's obviously major league pitcher. He's got the perfect build for golf. He's tall
Right.
and long and
Yes.
strong as an ox from the waist down.
right.
But they said he just crushes a ball and is a
Yeah.
super nice guy too.
Yeah, it's a great community, golf community.
Very
That's
cool.
great. Yeah, let's hope we have baseball this year.
Yeah,
That'd be nice. I ran into Dan McLaughlin, who's the one of the announcers for the Cardinals for TV. And I went to high school with him. So we and our boys play on the same soccer team. So I got to chatting with him. And he's like, well, it'll happen, but I don't think it's going to be the full boat. So they said if it doesn't get done by Monday, it'll be a shortened season.
Mm.
Which for him, it's not hurting him, but like all the beer vendors and
Yeah,
all those guys, that's who gets stuck with the tab, more or less.
right. Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Fingers crossed.
there's
it's crazy.
a lot of seasonal workers that have been, at that your ballpark. I grew up near Wrigley Field, that are dependent upon that of their annual income of a good baseball season.
Mhm.
So it's
Yeah,
just-
for sure. Our Jeff and our cousin still lives up near Wrigley. So he was in Roscoe Village, and now I cannot
yeah.
remember. I
Yeah.
cannot remember the name of the place where he lives now.
I
Yeah.
can't either.
yeah,
Yeah, all I remember, he used to be off of Addison. That's all I remember.
yeah. That's
Yeah. So it's Wrigley Field. It's like I think it was
Yeah.
18 blocks from the
yeah,
ballpark.
right.
That was
Very cool.
a great party place.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So let's get into a couple little bantery things ahead of time here before we get into some questions. We've had a lot going on in the world of golf. We've got the Florida Swing coming, but obviously the talk of the town has been the Super League and Phil Mickelson and all that jazz. Rhino, what are your thoughts, or what are some of your insights into what's been happening this past week and Big Phil?
Yeah, I mean, with Phil, I've said this about everybody. I wish people would stop apologizing. I don't care what you say, but it's when you apologize, and then all those other people expect you to keep apologizing when you say something that they don't like. And Phil, he's in that spot. So he lost KPMG. He lost
Right.
his sponsor on this deal, and he's in a position in life where he should be able to say whatever the hell he wants. As far as, he's got air fill, he's got a private jet, he's got more money than he knows what to do with. So that part I was disappointed that he apologized for that. As far as like the Saudi, the Super League goes, it's funny because I was watching a movie last night with Kendra called The Lost Leonardo. So it's, I forget even when it started, like 1990 or 2000. They supposedly found a lost Leonardo da Vinci painting, and the guy who ultimately ended up buying it, spoiler alert if you're going to watch it, was the current Saudi prince who paid $450 million for the thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, Jesus, why would you spend so much? And the point of that is they're trying to do two things. One, like create like a Saudi state where it's become like a cultural epicenter of the world. So people will go there to go see this painting, and they have all these other art installations that they spent billions and billions of dollars on. And then the other half of that is to run interference for all the terrible things that they do in the world.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I'm feeling. And I said that I even turned to Kendra, who's not totally down in the golf world. I said, they're doing the exact thing with golf now. When you're, supposedly offering DeChambeau $125 million to join the league, there's something else going on there. I mean, I like to follow the guy a lot too, but good Lord, man. I don't know. So I don't know. And I'm an old school guy. I like the classic PGA, but I see where Phil's coming from. That they don't have total control, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that to your first point, it's kind of like, well, if you're gonna say it, stick to your guns, right? So like, don't backtrack and say, oh well, I thought that was off the record and this and that, and put out this huge statement. If you're gonna say it, say it. If not, don't. I was just listening to Andy Frisella's podcast today, and he was talking about, so for those of you that don't know Andy Frisella, he owns the company First Form, which is a huge supplement company based out of St. Louis here. And he's a very, very big personality. He's got a huge podcast. And but he was saying, like, he doesn't have any sponsors on the show, doesn't run any ads. And he said, you know why I don't run any ads? So I can say whatever the frig I want, I don't have to answer to anybody. I don't have anybody tell me what I can and can't say. So even like a Joe Rogan, who's got Spotify, who thankfully stuck by his side, but, they can kind of dictate, what he can and can't say to some degree, or that's a possibility. As far as the Super League, I have not really understood the whole allure of the thing. I don't know the major details of it. I mean, obviously for the players, I know, but like as a fan, is that really something that I was going to tune into and watch? I don't know that I would. But I will say one thing about the whole Phil thing, because I think he's getting lambasted, and maybe rightfully so. But because he has done this and is saying all these things and has brought all this stuff up, the PGA Tour is and has made some major changes as far as influxing with more money, more opportunities. The PIP program, the FedEx Cup purses go up, the tournament purses go up because of the bitching and moaning, right? So even though a lot of these guys are saying like, Phil's an idiot, player wise, Phil's an idiot. This is, he's egotistical, he's naive, all this stuff that Rory was saying, which, yeah, sure. Maybe those guys all feel that way. Maybe that's true, but a lot of these dudes are going to benefit from Phil going out on a limb and doing this, especially some of these younger guys coming up that now all these purses are way bigger and there's all these other extra opportunities for them to make money. So I think that while people are right now like throwing stones at Phil, some of these guys behind the scenes are probably kind of like cheering it on a little bit, like, oh, sweet, the PGA is actually kind of changing some of these things because of him bringing this stuff up. So I can't totally go against, what he's doing and call him an idiot or I can, but I think a lot of these PGA Tour players, in the long run may end up owing Phil a bit of thanks. They all, like Pat Perez says, they all owe Tiger Woods thanks and should just give him all the PIP money no matter what, because none of them would be there without him. But I think Phil's creating some new revenue bonuses and stuff like that wouldn't have happened if he wouldn't have gone out on a limb. And now he's the black sheep for sure.
Right. And he brought, that's a good point, because he really brought to light a bunch of stuff that I never really thought of, how much control the PGA Tour actually does have over like earnings, kind of like the NFL, where they control so much of it, because they want it to be the NFL. They don't want, 63 individuals. They want one cohesive unit. You play for the Rams. That's it. Because then they control the cash. Of course.
But that's where golf's different though, right? All these guys are basically independent contractors,
right?
Working on their own, and they don't get paid if they don't make the cut, from the tour. So I see where, the argument in golf is a little different than some of the other sports because, you know, you can have a guy like Rory McIlroy show up to a tournament, or a Phil Mickelson, or a, you know, Tiger Woods, and they're the guys bringing the eyeballs. They're the guys bringing the people, you know, that are buying the tickets to go see the rounds. And then if they don't make the cut, they make $0 that week. Like, you know, that's where I see a difference between sports, where you play baseball, you play football, you play basketball, you've got this contract where you get paid whether you're on the bench or not on the bench. And so that's where it's a little bit different with golf.
Yeah. I always felt like boxing would be awesome if it was winner take all.
Yeah. Jeez. That'd
Then
be brutal.
You'd see some brawling there.
Yeah. Yeah.
That-
No kidding.
I think it'd be pretty dangerous. Yeah. And as far as like the layout of that Saudi league, I don't know how it would work if the league would be played over there, which
I know that there was a lot of venues, or they were slating a lot of, like, at least a handful of them in the States, which
Okay.
is interesting because then it's like, then does that course get shamed for hosting the Saudi Golf League? You know,
Right.
like, so there's all kinds of cancel culture stuff that could come about.
But I feel like if not enough happens here in the United States, that it's so disconnected that you wouldn't really get into it anymore.
Yeah.
Just like the English Premier League, they have these for soccer, a lot of these rules where you have to be European to enter that like system, because you know if you're from England and you're a supporter for whatever team, and that team becomes all, you know, foreigners, whether it be United States, Africa, or whatever, it's not as fun to watch,
Right.
and that's bad for business. So I can see how that kind of thing would happen if they sent everything over there. We have to watch everything on TV, never get to go. Plus the times are all weird.
Mhm.
You know, we're on the other side of the world, so I don't know if it would work. But man, if they're going to give me 100 million guaranteed, I sure would think about it.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, there's no way that money gets recouped either. It's like, what's the ultimate goal of that? You know, like, obviously it's a PR thing more than anything, because there's no way, if they're doling out hundreds of millions of dollars for these guys to just show up, I don't know how you're getting that back in ads and TV revenue and stuff like that. So,
Right, which they
anyway,
don't care.
they don't care. That's the thing. They don't care.
That's special FU money.
Yeah.
That's like trillionaire money over there.
Right.
Oh, well, they didn't ask me, so I don't have to think about it.
Me either. All right. What do we got in the ticker today?
Well, so all week we've kind of been talking about just getting started. You know, so you decide, you know, somebody lights a fire under your ass, or you light a fire under your own ass. Hey, I want to get into shape. Basically, what's next? Where do I start? And I know we talk about a lot of things. You know, what does getting in shape mean to different people? But I think, like, at its simplest form, it's, you know, the three things that you talked about today were, you know, the exercise, nutrition, and then mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Or like, if you're going to start anywhere, start there. I mean, if you're starting at zero, and, you know, some people, you know, can't even walk for 10 minutes, you know, then you start with a walk and you go from there. So that's kind of where we are, but it's so hard with what we do with 18 Strong, because we don't know where guys are starting.
Yeah.
And girls.
And there's such a different demographic of people that are in that, you know, category too, right? Like, it could be somebody who's 25 years old, or it could be somebody that's 70 years old, at all different levels of physical ability and things like that too. So yeah, I mean, so the email today talked about, you know, hey, if the thing that you need to do right now is start out walking, then start walking. That's about as simple as it can get, but that's like the biggest thing to pay attention to, is just pick one little thing and then do it consistently. And that's where most people go wrong. And we talk about this all the time, Ryan, how people try to jump into things too fast and get too much done. You know, you get on this wild hair of, oh, I'm going to get super fit, and this is going to be the year, and this is going to be the month, or whatever. And then you try to go so hard, so quickly with your diet, making huge diet changes, and then you throw in a 5-day-a-week workout, and then, hey, on top of that, I'm going to go walking, or I'm going to go running, or I'm going to do interval sprints, or that kind of stuff, or hike on the weekend. It's like, okay, cool. All of that stuff. Great. But if you don't commit to even to just like that one small thing. So my suggestion for the person that is walking, that like walking is kind of like the easiest way for them to start. If they are kind of hot to trot and they want to go do some other things, cool, go do those other things. But I would say, get out a piece of paper, get out a calendar, just like we've been doing with the Forge. Get out a calendar and say, if I don't do anything else, I'm going to at least do that walk every single day. And so,
Right.
Sure, you can try to work out 3 times a week or 4 times a week or whatever, but make sure that you get the walk in. And that's the most important thing right now. Or maybe it's the EFDs, like start there, do the EFDs. Or maybe it is the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to get 3 workouts in a week. But whatever it is, pick that and commit to that. Check it off your list. Make sure that you do it. Stick to it for 30 days. And then maybe add on another piece to it, or increase it a little bit, or, something like that. Maybe then add in the 4th day of a workout, or, whatever it is. So get your 30 days of actually doing the thing of walking, or the 4 weeks of doing whatever you commit to. But it's all about that commitment and about that consistency. And to be honest, like, that's what has helped me personally the most over the last, I don't know how many years, is just committing to like one piece of it and making sure that I get it done. And that's all what the Forge is just, it's 7 really simple things, but, and that's, kind of like going a little bit more all in, but it's about checking it off and making sure that you're consistent with it. And when you build that consistency, even if it's very small things like taking a walk or doing the EFDs, those really build up over time. And then, like we said in the email, that then makes you the person that then stays longer or does more, or as you start to build that up, it makes you want to do more and get more healthy and eat better and, work on your mindset and work on your body more and those kind of things.
Yeah, really, it's not the exercise isn't like the specific exercise or routine is not the important part. It's the building the habit is the important part.
Yeah.
And then you just add it. So, I know you're talking about the conversation that you had with your boy. So Murphy and I had a very similar conversation on the way home from soccer, and he's all gung ho, like he's ready to work out and 5 days a week. I'm like, Murphy, number one, you practice 3 days a week. Yeah. You have games on the weekends. I said, that's not real healthy. You need to let your body recover. So we had a pretty good, father-son teaching moment. And he's like, well, Dad, you do it 5 days a week. And I'm like, Murphy, you know how long it took me to make it normal for me to want to work out 5 days a week? Like, it was, years, honestly. And then, then Kendra and I started, got that dog, and then the morning walk started happening, and then it just kind of builds and builds and builds. Then that becomes a habit. So it's, yeah. And he did it, he's 12, and he did what every adult does. Like, I want to be on Men's Health, right. April 1st. Let's get it done right now. And I'm just as guilty as the next guy. I've done that too. When you see the summer's right around the corner, like, oh, good God, I need to see some abs here before too long. And then it just all falls apart.
Yeah, it's about recognizing the fact that this is a long game process, and it's cool to have short-term goals and push yourself. We're definitely not against pushing yourself to your limits too, but there's got to be that point where you have to have that underlying commitment that that you're going to stick to. So on those days that you are supposed to push yourself and you don't want to push yourself, you still at least get that bottom layer thing done. You get that critical right. task, or whatever you want to call it, taken care of. And yeah, if you just walked, let's say your goal is I'm going to walk a mile, and you did that 365 days straight, something's changing.
Right.
Your body's changing, your mindset's changing. You're going to then branch out into doing some more. Odds are you're going to, by the 365th day, you're probably walking more than a mile. maybe you're jogging,
Yeah.
maybe you're running, maybe you did a marathon, maybe you did a trail run, maybe like there's a lot that can happen in a year that we can't even see, but we get so focused on what we want to do there that we want to cram all this stuff in right now, that if we just started taking that first step and took that step the next day and the next day and the next day and the next day, you have no idea where that's going to be and how far we can go in that 365 days or 3 months or 6 months or 9 months or whatever it is.
Yeah. What's helped me like get these goals is when you think about, if you think about it so granularly, like day to day, like, Murphy's birthday was last week. I had a piece of cake and it's like, well, that day's ruined. But if you think about it more in terms of a month, like that piece of cake over even a week, over the course of a week or a month is nothing.
It's nothing.
So there's no reason to lose. And again, I've done this too. Well, I already ruined my day, so I'm going to lose my mind and go to White
So
Castles.
let's get after it this weekend.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's funny. And even when you break it down, like even granularly like that piece of cake in that day doesn't even have to ruin the day, right? Like,
Right.
I mean, there's ways to just make that part of the, if you're getting as granular as calories and macros and stuff like that, like you can fit that in and make that work as an exception, but still,
Sure.
I mean, and not lose ground. So it's all about how you look at it, how you plan, and really how you come back from it if you do make that mistake. Hence never miss twice.
Never miss twice. Yeah. Yeah, we needed some sort of hashtag, like don't lose your mind just because you screwed up a little bit. Like it's like the nutrition version of never miss twice.
Yeah.
If you eat White Castles, that doesn't mean on a Friday night, that doesn't mean go to Taco Bell, McDonald's, and White Castles again for the
Right.
weekend. Oh, it's already ruined now.
Oh, I screwed up today. Might as well get it all in before midnight.
Yeah, I'll start again on Monday.
Yeah.
I've had more Mondays in my life than I know what I can even remember. That'll be fine. Cool. Yeah, you want to take a few? We've got quite a few questions, as a matter of fact,
Yeah. Awesome.
in the old queue here. So no particular order. Okay, so how much strength does a golfer actually need, and when do you know they have enough? Could they, in fact, use more than the recommended amount? That's not quite sure how you quantify strength like that.
Yeah. So we've gotten this question in different ways over the years in different platforms. How much strength does a golfer need? How about this? More than you have today. That's my new answer. More strength than you have today. Because look, same thing we talked about before. If you're a 25-year-old that's in great shape, your strength capacity is going to be a lot better than somebody that's 70 years old and not in great shape. Or you could be in dog shit shape at 25 and, not be able to walk 9 holes. And then you have somebody who's 70 years old, like my guy, Greg, who comes in, twice a week and he's doing split squats and stuff like that. And he's able to carry in his bag 18 holes with no problem. And he's out driving his buddies. So I don't really like to quantify a blanket. How strong does a golfer need to be? I would just say, work on getting stronger than you are. Now, if you want to look at different exercises and lifts and things like that, you can kind of get into, deadlifts and squats and split squats. My main concern when I'm working with a golfer is getting them into full ranges of motion on whatever exercise we're doing. Primarily doing the big 5 that we talk about, the pushes and pulls of the upper body and the lower body, the like squats, split squats, and hinging exercises. And wherever you are today, let's try to get you stronger than that. Is there a point where I think they kind of alluded to, can you get too strong? I don't think that's a thing. But do you need to, I think what they're probably asking is how far do you have to go? Like how heavy should you start going? Is there a cap? I do think that, there's a point where you start putting so much stress on your body that you're almost kind of creating more risk than you are reward. Dr. Stuart McGill talks about this a lot with the back, about doing like really heavy deadlifts and back squats. Mike Boyle talked about this on our show as well. You know, doing like heavy loaded axial spine stuff. So, you know, big barbell squats and things like that, where you're putting a ton of stress on your back, just doesn't make sense for a golfer. So, you know, like I love doing deadlifts and things like that. I use more dumbbells than anything, but I do like using barbells and kettlebells and things like that. But at a certain point, like for me, backloaded squats just don't agree with me. And I'm sure I could get to a point where I did all my corrective exercises and I worked super hard and got to the point where I could do backloaded squats without pain. But I'm not willing to put in all that extra work. I can just do split squats and Bulgarian split squats with dumbbells. And I feel like I get just as much, if not more, and my back doesn't hurt. So yeah, there's a point where you can keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And it's like, well, why do I need to lift 400 pounds in a deadlift if my real goal is to play golf? You know, like if you're not if you love, I just talked to a guy today, our buddy Mike that we were talking about before, and he's coming in tomorrow to do an evaluation. And he's like, look, I started lifting over the last several years and I've really gotten into it. And he's like, if I could squat and deadlift all day, I would do it. He goes, but I was just talking to our other buddy who's an orthopedic surgeon, and I've seen him for my knee scope. I've seen him for my torn shoulder. I've seen him for this and that. And the doc was like, just fucking quit it, dude. You're 40 years old. Like, quit trying to do all this stuff. Your body's not ready for it. And your goals are no longer, you know, to be in the NFL combine or anything like that. It's like, it's about, you know, being strong and athletic and looking good. And, but like, don't sacrifice your body for something that's not really related to your goals, you know? So you got to kind of pick and choose. So to whoever asked this question, it's really up to you where you want to go and how strong you want to get. But, you know, just be careful with it. Like listen to your body will often tell you. Pain is a signal to our brain to tell us that something's wrong. Something's either not moving right. Something is not doing what it's supposed to do, or something is off and we need to fix something. And oftentimes wherever you're getting the pain is not necessarily what's causing the pain. So something else might be off there. But yeah, just proceed with caution and let your body tell you when. And, you know, if you're doing things that you feel like it gets you to a point where it's hindering your ability to, if golf is your number one goal, if you feel like you're doing so much of one direction of exercising and doing these things that are hindering your ability or causing pain to do what you really want to do, then you need to adjust it.
Yeah, that's silly. The way the question was framed was very odd. Like, strength is almost like being smart or pretty. You ever say, oh, that girl's too pretty? Never. You know, like one is too smart enough, one is too much money enough. It's different for everybody. So, and it's like, money's probably a bad example because you can't quantify that. But, you know, as far as, well, I guess you can quantify smarts too. But yeah, like when's too pretty? I don't know. I've yet to see that. But yeah, it's a weird thing. But yeah, that it does always goes back to training for which was that last week or 2 weeks. It was all about training with a specific goal or goals in mind, rather than just kind of aimlessly. Wouldn't it be neat to bench 225? Right. And that's interesting that Murphy, my son, again, was asking me. He asks me all the time, like, how much you bench?
And what you bench?
I go, Murphy, it's a fair question. I get it, but it's, in the big scheme of things, it's the dumbest question of all time. I told him, like, Murphy, benching is one, like, even with curls, I said, if I curled no weights with my arms, eventually my arms I couldn't lift my arms anymore. I go, that's not the point of the whole thing. I go, those are the glamour muscles, and that's what you tell girls, which I'm totally into, but it's not the thing. So again, he's getting hopefully a better lesson in strength training than we did. Got
Which-
max out today.
The funniest part of everything you just said there is that the girls don't give a shit either.
No, they really don't.
That's the best part. Oh man, it's funny. Elliot has a good question here. How do we know if the golfer needs strength or endurance or power or coordination? So I like that question because that breaks it up into a little bit more specifics of what a person might need in their golf game. So when I have somebody come into the gym, I'll often take them through, or I'll take them through the first time an evaluation where we'll look at, different ways that their body's moving or not moving, kind of take them through some movements where I can see, like how are the hips moving? What's their trunk control look like? I'll take them through like split squats and just some general looking things too, just to see how everything is, what they can handle pretty much, where they might be limited. And then I will do some power tests, and I learned these power tests from TPI. The first one is a sit up and throw. So like you're laying on the ground, you've got a weighted ball up over their head. So if you like picture me lying on my back with my knees bent, feet flat on the floor, and you have a ball over your head resting on the ground, and you have to sit up and throw that ball as far as you can. So that's a power test. What we're looking for there, and typically we use like an 8-pound ball for, somebody in kind of like I think it's the 160 to 180 range. And then we kind of go up a little bit or go down a little bit with the weight of the ball, depending on the weight of the person. When you throw the ball, you're looking for them to get roughly 20 feet with the ball. And so what that then tells us is, okay, if they don't get 20 feet, and that number was kind of come up with by TPI through different tests and studies and stuff like that. So when I look at that, I will look at what they did. If the pulling, or that's more of a pulling motion, so that would be kind of like equal to like, pull-ups and rows and things like that. They're pulling strength. And if they can't get 20 feet, then we say, okay, they're kind of lacking there. And they're lacking one of two things. They're lacking either the ability to generate speed, or they're lacking just general strength. And so then that's where I'll kind of do a couple different tests to see what I think of their like rowing strength. Like for me, if I have somebody that I know has decent shoulders, I'll try to get them, see if they can do a pull-up. That's kind of my general test of how's your pulling strength. Can you do a pull-up? And a lot of males cannot. And so immediately I kind of go to, well, that's going to be partially a strength thing. Let's start to work on building that strength to get them to that point where they can generate more of that power in that test, because that will then correlate with their swing speed and their ability to generate more power in the golf swing. We've also got the sit and throw test. Same thing with a medicine ball seated on a chair where you just throw the ball as far as you can straight out in front of you. And again, we're looking for 20 feet, and that tells us same thing. If they can get 20 feet, then it's like, okay, cool. Their speed's pretty good. Their strength is pretty good. We can work on both. We will tend to continue to work on the strength portion, because the stronger we get them, if they've already got the speed, we can keep moving that ball further. If they can't get the 20 feet, then that's when we say, okay, which one is it? Is it speed? Is it power? And then there's a couple different tests that we can do there. The one that TPI recommends is like a one-arm cable press, where you're looking at a certain rep range, 8 rep range max. And I don't have the percentages in front of me of what you're looking for based on your body weight, but that's kind of what you do, is look at, are you strong in that capacity, or are you not? Because if you're strong enough, then it's going to be a speed thing. Then we need to work on some more like quick moving pieces, maybe medicine ball throws, maybe some plyometric kind of things, maybe just some sprints, maybe get on the Airdyne bike and do some of those kind of things, just to get the muscles twitching a little bit faster. But if we see like, for most of the high school kids that come in, it's because they're long and dangly and they have no strength whatsoever. So I know, let's get this kid just starting to build some strength. With that will come some stability, coordination, and eventually some speed, because we got to build that foundation where he can then move off of. Now, for a lot of golfers that are maybe more in the 50, 60, 70 range, they'll come in and we'll take them through that movement, those movement pieces. And it's like, well, first thing we just need to do is get you moving through better ranges of motion and get the body, get your rotation moving, get your shoulders moving a little better, get your hips moving a little bit better. Then we can start to build in some strength on those kind of things. And that's kind of, I know that was a very convoluted way of showing all of that stuff, but that's kind of what goes through my head when I'm working with different individual golfers and what they might need the most. And then we just continue to try to progress to higher and higher levels as they continue to work.
Gotcha. Very good. That's Elliot. That was his question. That's a great question. So speaking of good questions, so Jim, going back to the starting, just getting started out. So when starting out a new exercise program, is it practical to initially set aside a 60-minute exercise time slot to allow for add-on exercises over time? For example, a 10-minute stretch, 10-minute walk, then 10-minute cool down will use 30 minutes. However, monthly, you add a new exercise, eventually using the 60-minute time slot. In the interim, use the unused 30 exercise time for mental strength exercise. Yeah, so I see exactly where you're coming from there, Jim. That could be a thing.
Yeah, Jim, you want to go ahead and elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, I'm doing it at the senior level, so we're getting back into this rotation. And I used to work out with a friend of mine, a doctor, and he said the worst thing you can do is try to play catch up with his years of exercise when you're working next to each other. And I did injure myself doing butterflies on the machine, and that took like 18 months to heal the shoulder.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was a good example of taking it slow and steady. So if you, in the morning, if I set aside 60 minutes and I'm only using up 30 over each month as I add another exercise, eventually I'll use up that 60 minutes or beyond, actually, but get being consistent in doing that, rather than trying to say, I got to do it all in 30 minutes now, And I guess a lot is on your schedule. I'm semi-retired, so I got a little more flexibility. I'm not making lunches in the morning for kids going to school, and those days are behind me. So,
well, Jim, I can tell you're a very detail-oriented guy.
Yeah,
you've already got your hour slot booked out for months and months, right?
Yeah.
But I love that. Like being able to plan those things out and right now say, 30 minutes is going to be my physical routine. And then this other 30 minutes is going to be whatever you want it to be, mental routine, meditation, all of those different things. Or, eventually, as it isn't 28 degrees there anymore, maybe you take that half hour and that becomes a little bit of practice time or something like that.
Correct.
I mean, that's totally up to the individual. I don't know that most people would book it out like that, that they're that structured. I think that's definitely a gift that you've built up over time to be that focused on having that dedicated time slot. I like the idea of building on exercise or building on more capacity into your workouts. What I would say is, what I like to do with our workouts is have a 4-week to 6-week program that people are going to do. And that's really how we build out, we built out the Golf Body Blueprint and the monthly programs. Ryan and I, in our own personal workouts, we typically are doing a 4-week breakdown where, each week you're writing down what your exercise or what your weights are, what your reps are, that kind of thing. And then after 4 weeks, we change it up. And it could be as simple as just changing some of the exercises and keeping the same rep scheme. It could be completely changing the rep scheme and keeping the same exercise, keeping similar exercises, but mixing it up a little bit so your body is kind of guessing a little bit, so you don't get in the same routine. So I wouldn't do the same thing and just keep adding one thing on and just keep it the same the whole year long.
Okay.
The reason we mix up the exercises is because just like the golf swing, you're moving in so many different directions. There's so many different variabilities of how our bodies move and just our daily lives, right? The different things that we have to do, getting up, getting down, steps, getting in and out of cars, everything. So we like to mix up different angles, different weights, different body parts, those kinds of things. So we're constantly like moving all around the body, hitting it from different sides. So we're a little bit more prepared overall. So I would say, maybe take that first month and have a little bit of an exercise routine, and maybe even 2 months. That's not a big deal, but then mix it up a little bit as you continue to build on that. So you're not just doing the same thing. Our bodies really kind of get in a routine, and they're we're naturally very lazy. So our bodies are very efficient, right? So they will get used to that exercise, and they'll do just what they need to do to get that exercise done. But they really kind of adapt to that exercise. So we kind of start to lose the benefits of the muscle building and things like that. It's when we change it up and bring in different stresses that we impose different stress on the body that then causes growth, causes muscle growth, causes strength, that kind of thing. Does that make sense? Cool.
Good idea. Yep.
Yeah. Hey, Jim, did you want to, while I've got you, talk about the golfer's elbow thing you've got going on?
Yeah. When I played last week, by the 14th hole, I had a hard time completing my swing on the drive all the way through, and also my fairway shots, because my left elbow was really in a lot of pain, and I had a hard time even raising it, from that point, so it's the first time that's happened to me.
Is it top of the elbow?
It's right in here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we would call that's actually considered tennis elbow, just because
Okay.
it's on anything. When it's on the upper part of the outside of the arm, it's tennis elbow. When it's on the inside, that's going to be golfer's elbow. And
Okay.
typically golfer's elbow is going to be on your trail arm. If a golfer gets elbow pain on I assume you're a right-handed golfer, right?
Correct. Yes.
And then typically if you're having pain in your lead arm, it's going to be more of a tennis elbow. It's going to be kind of on that outside.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tennis elbow is basically all of these tendons here
Mm-hmm.
that come down under your hand, and they do this motion. So think of holding your, like, I bet if, get my mic out of the way a little. I bet if you had your golf club in your hand and you tried to do that, that would be miserably painful.
Yes, that's
right?
correct.
So all of those muscles and tendons, they attach right on that spot that you were just pointing to.
Mm-hmm.
And so what was happening is for some reason, could be just repetitive from your swing. Could be maybe you took a divot that just caused a little irritation and caused a quick little flex of the wrist.
Okay.
And it pulled those tendons from, like, just yanked on that bone, or
Okay.
repetitively has just been yanking on that bone.
Okay.
What I would do maybe first for the next time you play is, it's not a bad idea to get one of those braces just for the short term, if you've seen those things. And
Mhm.
basically what that does, it clamps down here.
Okay.
So it spreads out the tug from these muscles,
All right.
and almost anchors it right under my fingers as opposed to on the bone. So it'll just take a little pressure off of that for the time being,
Okay.
which is a good thing. We don't want you continuing to aggravate that.
Right.
Then I would get, some people have told me that, like, that CBD cream is really good. Like some of those CBD creams, I've used a little bit of that, but I haven't noticed a dramatic improvement in some of the pain areas where I've used it. But putting something like that on, or even just like a lotion and kind of doing like a cross friction massage can help. And I would start, maybe even start further down here and just kind of work your way all the way up towards the elbow. Dig in a little bit to where it's a little uncomfortable, but not crazy uncomfortable. And then even like some little stretches where you're kind of like, almost like we do the neck circles and the shoulder circles. You can do the same thing with the wrist. The more you move the wrist, and it's going to get the elbow rotating, that's going to help with some of the blood flow and things like that. But like I mentioned before, where you have your pain is usually not the cause of the pain. So typically with elbow pain like that, our elbows, our wrists and everything are doing more of the work than they need to, right? So they're taking up the slack, working on a lot of those postural exercises, shoulder blades and things like that, even some of the rows where we're working on some of those like mid shoulder exercises to build that strength up. Because most of us, if you look at somebody that when they're standing, let me scoot my camera back a little bit here. Most of us stand a little rounded, right? And notice what happens when my shoulders round. Watch my elbows, how they naturally kind of like roll in. So now if I'm going to grab a club, I have to now rotate my hands to get on the club. Does that make sense? And I can already feel stress out here. So if I'm rounded in my golf posture, raise up a little here. I'm rounded in my posture. I got to rotate my forearms to get my hands on the club. That's already putting extra stress on my forearms. If instead I pull my shoulders and rotate here, now my grip is a little bit more of a lighter flexion as opposed to having to rotate. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
So the better posture you have, so instead of being here, if we can, again, watch my elbows, if I can get here, it puts me in a better posture and it's a lot easier to grip the club.
Yeah.
So anybody on here that has trouble with that, try that little move right there and just see how much easier it is to stand there and bring your hands together and grab the club as opposed to rounded shoulders and having to twist your elbows. And right there, that's going to be something that hopefully will help take some of the stress off of you in your golf swing immediately.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
That's kind of like let's call that the Tommy boy from now on, Bodine. Like when he walks past the girl at the pool, you know where the gym's at?
Yeah.
That's cool. I'll find it. The Tommy boy.
Here we
happened
go.
today.
And,
All right.
and Elliot mentioned that the TheraBar or TheraBand bar and the Tyler Twist, those are exercises that you can look up that with the TheraBar. I can't remember if we have one here or not. They've got some, you need to watch the video because the way that they grab it is kind of interesting, but it's a great eccentric kind of control drill that helps to build that strength up in the forearms as well. Really helps with both golfer's elbow and tennis elbow. Thank you, Elliot.
Cool. All right. So we've got 10 minutes here. Let's see how many of these we can get through. So what exercises can help with proper sequencing of the golf swing so that I don't cast the club and reach maximum speed of the club head at the proper time? Okay, so don't cast it. I got you.
Right. So this is kind of interesting. I was working with Casey Cox, who is the golf pro at Old Warson Country Club here in St. Louis, which is one of the top clubs. And Casey's a biomechanics expert. And we were looking at my swing with K-Vest on. And for those of you that don't know what K-Vest is, it's a biofeedback system where you actually strap like a harness on your shoulders, you strap it around your waist, and then you have something on your hands as well. And so it gives you your sequencing of the club or of your body. And it gives you all this different feedback. And, one of my flaws in my swing is I tend to kind of swing a little bit over the top and get a little bit of that casting in there. And, what Casey found was that I was actually trying to over rotate in my backswing. And it was cool to see this biofeedback of what was really happening. Cause it told me like how much tilt my shoulders were at, how, what my axis was, what my posture was, what my hips were doing, all this different stuff. And what it really boiled down to was I able to keep my postures in the different positions of my swing? So starting out, I start with really good posture. And then when I turn, I end up getting really flat with my shoulders as opposed to keeping my shoulders down. And so I wasn't really rotating into my hips properly, wasn't And then what would happen was I would turn here and I would kind of like extend a little bit. And so I had nowhere to go except for throwing my arms over, right? So I know this is all my personal stuff, but it was fascinating to see that just by getting me into a better position at the top of my backswing and then letting me just kind of like unwind from there, not trying to turn the hip. So what I ended up seeing was, and this kind of goes back to our conversation we had a long time ago with our buddy Nick from Golf Tech about the big positions in the golf swing. You know, they did the I think it was called the True Spec study or something like that.
Yeah, like the six positions that.
Yeah, like the 6 positions that low handicap golfers get into that high handicappers don't. And I highly recommend, you know what, I'll repost something on that in our Facebook group. Because that was really eye-opening to me. Because if you get into the right position, then your body's going to let you do the sequencing properly. And so when I got my shoulders into the right posture, kept the angle of the shoulder plane, and then was just able to pretty much like unwind. Most people, what they try to do, and this is a big problem with the over the top swinger, because they're always told, well, you're getting your upper body going first. You got to get your hips moving first, right? Get your hips moving first. Well, what they try to do is they just try to rotate their hips. And I know that this is not very conducive to.
This is great for radio.
Yeah, right. Well, luckily most people watch this on the video. Not the greatest thing, but bring it down a little bit. There we go. Okay, so if you go to the top and all I try to do is turn my hips, see how my arms automatically go that way?
Right.
So if I'm flat and I turn my hips, my hands automatically are way over the top. Now, if I get into that better plane here, and instead of trying to rotate, I'm on my right side, I'm on my trail leg. If I get to my front leg first, so with that little shift, not just straight rotation, but going from this leg, shifting onto this leg, from that rotated position, if I shift first, it lets me kind of drop the hands a little bit. So I know this isn't an exercise or a drill, but this again is something for you to kind of practice in your swing when you're actually working on swinging the club. Because again, like we talked about many times, just grabbing a cable and working on rotating your hips is not going to be the answer, right?
Right.
So from here, from your right, I'm on my right leg, and then I'm kind of just shifting laterally with the hips, which kind of drops the hands down that way. And then it almost forces you to then rotate all the way around. Now, what can you can do that with a medicine ball, where you're, then kind of throwing the medicine ball. Medicine ball throws are one of the best drills for your sequencing stuff, because you're actually like letting go of the weight, kind of like you would almost like, you almost let go of the club. You let it swing around you. If you have a cable, which cable exercises can be good, but you're then holding all that tension this way. You're holding that weight, which is not like your golf swing. So now your weight's going to be shifting back, that kind of stuff. Whereas if you have a ball and you're stepping and throwing, you're going to, or swinging it this way and then letting go, it's going to let you rotate through the motion just like you would with your golf swing. So those are some of the best drills, are just the medicine ball throws. That's again why, for speed and stuff, why we use things like the super speed clubs and some of those things, because they're so much like the golf club and swinging the golf club. The orange whip again is a good one, because that almost creates a little bit of that weight and that lag that forces you to kind of hang back a little bit instead of casting over the top. So those are a couple of good tools that you can use, but just throwing in a good medicine ball throw can really, really be helpful.
Yeah, the medicine ball is like a highly underrated piece of exercise equipment because it's not real fancy, and again, it's right up our alley because it's super simple,
Yeah.
and I actually think it's kind of fun to do, which I can't say that about a lot of exercises.
Yeah. And then I mean, that's a great power apparatus, like you can do slams with it. You can do overhead rotate, so you're building some of the rotation, you're building some of that power that we were talking about before. So
Right.
overhead slams are a great drill to work on some power. You can do just prep throws into the wall like that, where you're working on speed and power that way. There's all kinds of great things that you can do with medicine balls. The one thing that I wish we had here in the gym is that we had at the other one is like a concrete wall to throw them against.
Right.
I really do miss that. We're able to throw them like long ways on the turf, but then you have to have somebody down there catching it for you, and it's just not quite the same.
No, it feels like it's a good if you're ever having a bad day, throw that medicine ball around for a little bit and it'll
Yeah.
get out all the angst.
There's and maybe I'll do an Instagram video on this one. There's one that I was just playing around with the other day. I had some weight on the sled, and then I hooked the TRX band to it and kind of had the sled out that way, and then just drug it like real quick, just a lightweight, nothing super heavy, drug it towards me, almost like a swinging motion, which again, as it slides toward me, it loses the pressure. So kind of like a golf swing, you have to generate a lot of force, and then there's no restriction at the end. I kind of like that one. I want to play around with that a little bit more, but that could be a really good sequencing one too, because you have to generate that from your lower body first. You can't just pull the sled. You have to, let the hips turn and let the arms come back behind you with the sled. So I like that one. That you could give that one a try too.
Yeah, that's good. And what I like about them, especially, is that you don't like in the golf swing, we tend to overthink it.
Mhm.
Like have you ever really thought about how you're throwing a medicine ball? No, you just throw it, and your body's just naturally athletic to do what you're asking it to do. And I'm just getting closer with golf, where I'm starting to kind of more approach it that way, just like the AMG guys, more of just like an athletic motion. Whatever you're playing, like Teddy said that you don't think when you're throwing washers or horseshoes, you don't think about how far back your arm goes and where your
Right.
release point is. No, you're just I want to throw it there. Now
Yeah.
I'm not quite there yet, but the theory is good.
The theory is solid.
I have
Yeah.
lots of good theories in my tiny little brain. Cool. Yeah, so we are at 3 p.m. on the nose here, Bodine. If you want to wrap this thing up with words of wisdom, or everybody have a good weekend.
Yeah, man. I think going back to our initial conversation is, just back to the kind of the consistency thing of, figuring out what you want to work on, what direction you want to go. If it's your fitness, if you need to improve your mobility, if you need to improve your endurance, your whatever, pick something that is moving you in that direction, and then commit to it. And then, let's stick to it long term. And this is all very front of mind for me, simply because of these last, nearly 60 days of my forging. And just, I've been trying to keep a journal throughout the forging process, every couple of days, writing some things down of what I'm noticing, the days that were struggles and stuff like that. But how crazy the results can be when you do just stick to what you said you were going to do over, the simplest things, and you just keep doing it and doing it and doing it. And what also blows my mind is how so many days it can be a mental challenge to actually do that thing. But then once you do it, you're like, man, I'm so glad that I did that. Like even this morning, I was kind of going back and forth about going out and walking the dog and doing my ruck or whatever. And, try to convince myself that it was icy and dangerous. And it's like,
Big baby.
but, because, but it's like, then you do it and you're like, yeah, I'm so glad that I did that. And over the, it's just been 60 days and I've seen some crazy results as far as the things that I wanted to improve. And then you expand that out and do that for another 3 months and another 6 months. you'll just be blown away with where you can go. It seems a year seems like really far away right now, but look at your kids and see how fast a year goes, you know, like
Right.
how quickly, you know, Sam has gone from 13 to 14. And it's like, man, where did that time go? And it's happening no matter what. So why not commit to something and do it and reach a new goal in 365 days?
I'm with you.
All right.
Cool.
Okay, guys. Thanks
Thank
for joining
you.
us this week.
Thank you for all the
Yeah.
good answers.
You got it. You got it. Stay strong, everybody, and we will see you next week.
All right. See
See
you
you
guys.
later.
Later.